Rain hammered against the windows of Rainier Grounds, a small cafe tucked into Seattle's fading industrial district where gentrification hadn't yet reached, the kind of place where survival mattered more than ambience. Bayek Taehwan sat in the corner booth at 11:30 p.m., seeking refuge from a night that had gone sideways. Blood still stained his knuckles, not his own. The cafe was nearly empty. Just him, the exhausted woman behind the counter, and a small girl who should have been asleep hours ago. He didn't come to places like this. His world existed in penthouses overlooking Elliott Bay, in private rooms where power was negotiated over aged whiskey, but tonight demanded invisibility, and this forgotten cafe offered exactly that. He watched the woman, Renee, her name tag read, move between tables with mechanical efficiency, dark circles shadowing her eyes. The girl sat at a corner table, head resting on folded arms, clutching something against her chest. Taehwan returned to his phone, reviewing damage control messages. Then small footsteps approached. He looked up. The girl stood beside his table, holding a broken music box, her eyes meeting his without fear. "Sir," she said, voice clear and trusting, "can you fix my toy? It was Daddy's last gift." The music box was old, its pink paint chipped and fading. Taehwan stared at it, then at the child who'd placed it on his table with such casual trust. 7 years old, maybe 8. 2 puffballs of natural hair framed her face, held by mismatched clips, one rainbow, one silver. Her eyes were too serious for her age, carrying weight no child should know. "Iris!" Renee's voice cut through the quiet cafe, sharp with panic. She rushed from behind the counter, eyes wide with horror at what her daughter had done. "Baby, I'm so sorry, sir. She didn't mean to bother you." Her hands trembled as she reached for the girl. "Come on, sweetie. Leave the man alone." Taehwan's gaze shifted from daughter to mother. Recognition flickered. This was fear, he understood, the kind born from knowing how dangerous the wrong attention could be. Renee had clocked him the moment he'd walked in. Expensive clothes in a cheap cafe. Cold eyes. Blood on his knuckles he hadn't bothered to wash. She knew exactly what he was, even if she didn't know his name. "It's fine," he said, voice low. His eyes returned to Iris, who hadn't moved. "What's wrong with it?" Iris's face brightened. She picked up the music box, turning it over carefully. "The dancing lady doesn't spin anymore, and it doesn't play music." Her small fingers traced the crack along the base. "Daddy gave it to me on my birthday before he—" She stopped, the unfinished sentence hanging heavy. Renee's eyes glistened. She placed a hand on Iris's shoulder. "Baby, the man is busy. We can try to fix it at home." "When did he give it to you?" Taehwan interrupted, still looking at the child. "My 6th birthday," Iris replied. 11 months ago. He was really sick, but he went to 3 stores to find it. Mama told me." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He died 2 months later." Silence settled over the table. Outside, rain continued its relentless assault. Taehwan could feel Renee's anxiety radiating like heat. She wanted to grab her daughter and run. Smart woman. But something had shifted in him the moment those small hands had placed the broken music box on his table. He'd killed 3 men tonight, personally. One had begged for his daughter's sake, crying that she needed her father. Taehwan had pulled the trigger anyway because mercy was weakness, and weakness got you buried. He'd walked away without looking back, the way he always did, the way he'd done for 13 years. But now this child stood before him with a broken piece of her dead father, asking for help with eyes that held no suspicion. Just trust, pure, inexplicable trust. "Sit," he told Iris, gesturing to the opposite side of the booth. "Sir, really, you don't have to—" Renee began. His gaze cut to her. She asked, "I'll look at it." Renee hesitated, then nodded slowly. She helped Iris into the booth before retreating to the counter, though her eyes never left her daughter. Taehwan understood. If he wanted to hurt the child, she'd die trying to stop him. Maternal instinct. He respected that at least. Iris pushed the music box across the table. Up close, Taehwan could see the craftsmanship beneath the damage. Hand-painted ballerina, delicate mechanism visible through the broken base. Someone had loved this enough to search 3 stores while dying. "Do you have tools?" he asked Renee. She blinked. There's a toolkit in the back, for when things break. It's pretty basic. Bring it. She disappeared into the storage room. Iris watched Tai Huan with open curiosity, chin resting on her folded hands. What's your name? Tai Huan. That's a pretty name, different. She smiled, revealing a gap where she'd lost a tooth. I'm Iris, like the flower. Daddy picked it because I was born in spring. Your mother works here every night? Iris nodded. Night shift at the cafe, day shift at the grocery store. Sometimes I sleep here. She gestured to the corner table where she'd been sitting. Sometimes at Mrs. Chen's apartment if Mama has double shifts. Where's your family? Just us. Daddy's parents died before I was born. Mama's family is in Atlanta, but we can't afford to visit. Matter of fact. No self-pity. Just reality. Renee returned with a worn toolkit, setting it on the table. This is all we have. Tai Huan opened it, examining the contents. Basic screwdrivers, pliers, electrical tape. Enough. He'd built his first gun with less. His hands moved with practiced precision, carefully prying open the broken base. The mechanism inside was jammed, the spring dislodged. You know how to fix things? Iris leaned forward, fascinated. I know how to solve problems. His fingers worked the spring back into position. Whether it's a music box or something else, the principle is the same. Find what's broken, fix it, or remove it. Dark words for a child, but Iris just nodded thoughtfully. Daddy used to say problems are just puzzles waiting to be solved. Smart man. He was the best. Her voice carried absolute certainty. He made me laugh every day. Even when he was sick and it hurt to smile, he still made jokes. She traced invisible patterns on the table. Mama cries at night. She thinks I don't hear, but I do. Tai Huan's hand stilled. He looked at the child. This small, brave creature who carried her mother's secret grief and her father's memory with equal weight, who approached dangerous strangers asking for help because she still believed the world held kindness. Something cracked in his chest. Hairline fracture in armor built over decades. Your mother is strong, he said quietly. Strength sometimes looks like tears. Iris considered this. Are you strong? People think so. Do you cry? No one had asked him that in 20 years. No. Why not? Because crying meant feeling, and feeling meant weakness, and weakness meant death. Because he'd learned at 10 years old that tears changed nothing when you were alone in the dark. Because he'd buried that part of himself the night his uncle had put a gun in his hand and told him to prove he wasn't useless. I forgot how, he said instead. Iris reached across the table, her small hand covering his scarred knuckles. Mama says it's okay to forget things as long as you remember what matters. Tai Huan stared at her hand on his. Innocent touch, freely given. No one touched him without fear or calculation. No one reached for him expecting comfort. The music box mechanism clicked into place. He wound the key carefully. The ballerina began to spin, and tinkling notes of Clair de Lune filled the quiet cafe. Iris gasped, her face transforming with pure joy. You fixed it! She clutched the music box to her chest, eyes shining. You really fixed it. Mama, look, he fixed Daddy's music box. Renee approached, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she whispered. You have no idea what this means to her, to us. Tai Huan stood, dropping cash on the table, far more than a cup of coffee cost. Keep it playing. He headed for the door, needing distance from this strange ache spreading through his chest. But Iris's voice stopped him. Mister, Tai Huan, will you come back? He turned. Mother and daughter stood together, the music box playing between them, hope written across both faces. He should say no, should disappear back into his world where broken things stayed broken and help came with prices. Maybe, he heard himself say. Iris smiled. I'll save you the corner booth. Outside, rain soaked through his shirt within seconds. Tai Huan stood beneath the cafe's flickering sign, hands clenched, fighting the unfamiliar sensation of his carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. Behind him, through the window, a small girl danced with a music box. And for the first time in 13 years, Baek Tai Huan wondered if strength might look different than he'd always believed. 3 nights later, Tai Huan returned to Rainier Grounds. He told himself it was strategic. Laying low after the recent territorial dispute made sense. The cafe's obscurity provided cover. That was all. The fact that he arrived at exactly 11:30 when Iris would still be awake meant nothing. The bell chimed as he entered. Iris looked up from her corner table, face splitting into a grin. "You came back, Mama." Mr. Taejuan came back. Renee emerged from the kitchen, surprise flickering across her exhausted features. "Sir, welcome." Cautious, still uncertain of his intentions. Coffee, black. He moved to the corner booth, his booth now, apparently. Iris abandoned her coloring book, music box clutched in one hand as she approached. "Can I sit with you?" "Iris," Renee warned. "Let the man have his coffee in peace." But Taejuan gestured to the opposite seat. Something about the child's unguarded happiness pulled at him. Iris climbed into the booth, setting the music box carefully on the table between them. "I played it every day," she announced proudly. "Just like you said. It still works perfectly." "Good." He accepted the coffee Renee placed before him, their eyes meeting briefly. Fear had lessened, replaced by wary curiosity. Iris opened her coloring book, selecting a purple crayon. "I'm coloring flowers. Want to help?" "I don't color. Everybody colors, even grown-ups." She pushed the book toward him. "Here, you can do the butterfly, I'll do the roses." Taejuan stared at the outlined butterfly. When was the last time he'd done something this purposeless? This innocent? He couldn't remember. His days consisted of calculated violence, strategic meetings, maintaining power through fear. Coloring butterflies existed in a different universe. But Iris waited, expectant and patient. He picked up an orange crayon awkwardly. She giggled. "That's a funny color for a butterfly. Butterflies can be orange." "Okay, but stay inside the lines. Daddy always said that's the important part." They colored in silence. Strange how peaceful it felt. The cafe's fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Rain pattered against windows. Iris hummed along with the radio playing softly from the kitchen, some pop song he didn't recognize. Her small hand moved with careful concentration, tongue poking out slightly as she focused. "Do you have kids?" she asked suddenly. "No." "A wife?" "No." "A girlfriend?" "Iris," Renee called from the counter, voice sharp with mortification. "That's not polite." But Taejuan found himself almost amused. "No girlfriend either." "Why not? You're handsome. Mama said so." Renee's face flushed dark. "Iris Marie Whitfield. She said it to Mrs. Chen," Iris continued, oblivious to her mother's distress. "She said, 'That man is dangerously handsome, and I hope Iris doesn't bother him again because men like that are trouble.'" Perfect mimicry of her mother's cadence. Taejuan's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Your mother is wise." "I think you're nice," Iris declared. "Dangerous people don't fix music boxes." If only she knew. The gun pressed against his spine had killed 17 people. The hands currently coloring a butterfly had broken bones, ended lives, destroyed families. But in this moment, in this forgotten cafe with this trusting child, he could pretend to be someone different. "Tell me about your father," he said quietly. Iris's face lit up. For the next 20 minutes she talked, about how Caleb had made pancakes shaped like animals every Sunday, how he'd taught her to read using comic books, how he'd worked construction but dreamed of opening a restaurant, how he'd gotten sick so fast, cancer eating through him in months. "He made Mama promise something before he died," Iris said, voice dropping. "I heard them talking. He made her promise to keep going, to not give up, to make sure I knew he loved me." She touched the music box. "That's why this matters so much. It's proof he kept loving me, even when he knew he was leaving." The crack in Taejuan's chest widened. This child understood loss in ways he'd spent decades trying to forget, but where he'd let it harden him, she'd somehow remained soft, open, capable of trusting a stranger with her most precious possession. "Your mother is keeping that promise," he observed. "I know. But she's so tired and sad." Iris looked toward the counter where Renee was cleaning. "I try to be good, to not ask for things, but sometimes I think she's going to break like my music box did, and I don't know how to fix people." Neither did he. He knew how to break them, how to exploit weakness, how to eliminate problems. But healing, that required something he'd lost long ago. The bell chimed. 3 men entered, and Taejuan's entire body shifted from relaxed to combat-ready in a heartbeat. He recognized the tattoos, the swagger, Low-level Bratva enforcers, Russian mob. They had no business in this neighborhood unless they were expanding territory. The leader spotted Taiwan immediately. Recognition flashed, followed by calculation. They knew who he was. The question was whether they'd be smart enough to walk away. "Nice cafe," the leader said, voice thick with accent. He looked at Renee. "Very nice. We're new to neighborhood, looking to offer protection services." Protection racket. Standard intimidation. Taiwan watched Renee's face go pale. She couldn't afford protection money. She could barely afford rent. "Cafe already has protection," Taiwan said, voice flat and cold. The Russian's eyes narrowed. "You? You're north side. This is neutral territory." "Not anymore." Taiwan stood slowly, buttoning his cuffs with deliberate precision. The movement revealed the edge of his shoulder holster. "This cafe is under Silent Dragon protection. Effective immediately. Touch it, and you answer to me." The silence stretched taut. Iris looked between the men, confusion on her face. But Renee understood perfectly. Her hands gripped the counter, knuckles pale. The Russian leader assessed the situation. 3 of them, 1 of him. But Bag Taiwan's reputation preceded him. Starting a war over a rundown cafe wasn't worth it. "Understood." He gestured to his men. "We leave." They filed out. Taiwan remained standing until their car pulled away, then slowly settled back into the booth. His hands were steady, but internally he was reeling. What had he just done? Claimed a random cafe? Committed his organization's resources to protecting a struggling single mother? "What did you do?" Renee's voice shook. "You just... What was that?" "A problem." He met her eyes. Now solved. "I can't afford protection money. I can barely afford... No charge." She stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. "Why? Why would you do this?" "Because your daughter looked at me like I was worth trusting. Because she showed me her broken music box, and I remembered what it felt like to value something fragile. Because for 3 nights now, I've slept without nightmares for the first time in years." "Consider it a favor," he said instead. "Mr. Taiwan?" Iris tugged his sleeve. "Were those bad men?" "Yes." "Did you scare them away?" "Yes." She smiled, complete and trusting. "I knew you were strong, but the good kind of strong, like Daddy was." Renee sank into the booth beside her daughter, head in her hands. "This is crazy. You don't even know us." "I'm learning." Taiwan finished his coffee, placed more cash on the table. "I'll have someone check the cafe's security, cameras, better locks. Don't argue." He stood to leave. Iris grabbed his hand. "Thank you for keeping Mama safe." Her small fingers wrapped around his scarred knuckles, and Taiwan felt something fundamental shift inside him. This wasn't strategic, wasn't calculated. This was the first purely selfless thing he'd done since he was a child himself. "Get some sleep, Iris. Will you come back tomorrow?" He should say no. Should cut this connection before it became a liability. But looking at her hopeful face, at Renee's exhausted gratitude, he found himself nodding. "Tomorrow," he confirmed. Outside, his driver waited with the engine running. Jinsu's eyebrows rose as Taiwan climbed in. "Boss, what was that about? New asset to protect. A cafe in the industrial district? That's not our territory." "It is now." Taiwan's tone ended discussion, but as they pulled away, he looked back at the cafe's lit windows. Through the glass, he could see Iris waving, her mother's hand on her shoulder. What was he doing? Building a weakness his enemies could exploit, letting sentiment compromise decades of careful detachment. Probably. But the ache in his chest felt less like breaking, and more like something frozen beginning finally to thaw. By the end of the week, Rainier Grounds had new security cameras, reinforced locks, and an upgrade to the electrical system Renee hadn't requested, but desperately needed. Taiwan appeared every night at 11:30, claimed his corner booth, and let Iris fill the silence with stories about school, friends, and the small joys of her limited world. He told himself it was surveillance, maintaining his investment. But the truth sat in the booth across from him every night, coloring pictures she insisted on giving him, asking questions no one else dared ask. "Do you have a favorite food?" Iris asked on Thursday night, sorting through her crayon collection. "Galbi Jim," Korean braised short ribs. His mother had made it before. "What's that?" Korean beef dish, sweet and savory. Her eyes widened. You're Korean. I didn't know. Well, I kinda knew because of your name, but I didn't want to assume. My teacher says assuming makes you look dumb. She leaned forward conspiratorially. Can you teach me Korean words? And just like that, Tae-hwan found himself teaching a 7-year-old basic Korean phrases. Annyeonghaseyo became her greeting every night. She practiced 감사합니다 for thank you until she got the pronunciation perfect. Her enthusiasm was infectious, her determination fierce. Renee watched from the counter, expression unreadable. After Iris fell asleep at her corner table, she approached his booth. Can we talk? Tae-hwan gestured to the seat. She sat, hands wrapped around a coffee mug, gathering courage. I need to understand what's happening here, she said quietly. The security upgrades, you coming every night, the way you are with Iris. She met his eyes. I know what you are. I'm not stupid. Men like you don't do kindness without reason. What do you think my reason is? That's what scares me. I can't figure it out. Her voice cracked slightly. Is this about her? Because if you think... Stop. Ice in his tone. I don't harm children, ever. Then what? Why us? Tae-hwan studied her. 29 years old but looked older, worn down by grief and struggle. Working 2 jobs to keep a roof over her daughter's head. Drowning in medical debt from a husband who died anyway. She had every right to be suspicious. Your daughter asked me to fix her music box, he said slowly. And I did. Then she asked me to come back, so I did. Then she asked if I'd keep her safe, and I... He stopped, searching for words he'd never needed before. I don't have children or family, or anyone who looks at me without fear or calculation, but she does, every time. Renee's eyes glistened. She thinks you're her friend. I know. Are you her friend? The question hung heavy. Was he? Could someone like him even have friends? Or was he just using a child's affection to fill some void he refused to acknowledge? I don't know what I am, he admitted, but I won't hurt her, either of you, that much I can promise. Promises from a man in your position. She shook her head. I don't even know your full name. What you really do. Who you are beyond the scary man with too much money who fixed my daughter's music box. Baek Tae-hwan, I run Silent Dragon Syndicate, Korean organized crime, North Seattle territory, gambling, protection, import-export operations that aren't exactly legal. He said it plainly, watching her face. I've killed people, many people. I've broken families, destroyed lives. I'm not a good man, Renee. She absorbed this, trembling slightly. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve honesty. And because... He glanced at sleeping Iris. Because she deserves better than lies. Then tell me the truth. All of it. Why us? Tae-hwan was quiet for a long moment. I was orphaned at 10, in Seoul. My parents died in a fire, arson, rival gang. My uncle brought me here, put a gun in my hand at 12, taught me that survival meant becoming harder than anyone who wanted to hurt you. He touched his neck tattoo absently. I learned well. Too well. 26 years later. I'd forgotten what it felt like to care about anything except power and control. And then Iris asked you to fix her toy. And then Iris asked me to fix her toy, he echoed. Stood there with this broken piece of her dead father, trusting a complete stranger to handle it gently, looking at me like I was capable of kindness. His voice dropped. No one has looked at me like that since I was her age. Renee wiped her eyes. She lost her father. You lost your parents. That's the connection. Maybe. Or maybe she's just a good kid who sees past the monster. You're not a monster. Monsters don't color pictures of butterflies. She smiled despite her tears. Monsters don't make sure single mothers have working locks and security cameras. Monsters don't learn Korean words with 7-year-olds just because they asked. Don't make me better than I am. And don't make yourself worse than you are. She reached across the table, hand hovering near his, not quite touching but offering. I'm scared, terrified actually, but I'm also grateful. For the first time since Caleb died, I don't feel completely alone. Iris has someone besides me who cares if she's safe. That matters. I'm dangerous to know. I'm aware. But you're also here, every night. Drinking coffee you probably hate in a cafe that's beneath your standards, letting my daughter talk your ear off about nonsense. She smiled. That's not nothing, Taiwan. Hearing his name without Mr. in felt intimate, personal, like she was seeing past the title to the man underneath. I don't know how to do this, he confessed. How to be, whatever this is. Neither do I. But maybe we figure it out together. She stood, collecting mugs. You want to know something? Iris told me you're going to be her friend forever. She's decided. When that kid decides something, that's it. She's stubborn like her daddy was. Forever is a long time. For 7-year-olds, forever means until something better comes along. For my daughter? Renee looked at sleeping Iris. Forever means forever. So if you're going to be in her life, be in it for real. Don't disappear when things get complicated, because they will. And if you break her heart, she fixed him with a look that would have impressed his enemies. I don't care who you are or what you've done, you'll answer to me. Mama Bear protecting her cub. Taejuan respected that. Understood. She nodded, satisfied. Good. Now, about Thanksgiving next week. What about it? We always do a small dinner, just us usually. Mrs. Chen from upstairs sometimes, but Iris asked if you'd come. Seeing his expression, she raised a hand. I know. It's weird. We barely know each other. You're a crime lord, I'm a cafe worker drowning in debt, but she asked and I promised her I'd ask you. Thanksgiving dinner. Domestic, normal. Everything his life wasn't. He should refuse. Make an excuse. Maintain distance. What time? Renee blinked. Seriously? What time? He repeated. 4 o'clock. Our apartment's above the laundromat on Pike Street. Unit 3B. Nothing fancy, just... She trailed off, suddenly embarrassed. It's not what you're used to. I'll be there. Her smile transformed her face, washing away years of exhaustion. Iris is going to lose her mind. As if summoned by her name, Iris stirred at the corner table, blinking sleepily. Mama? Is it time to go home? Almost, baby. Say goodnight to Mr. Taejuan. Iris shuffled to the booth, rubbing her eyes. Without warning, she climbed onto the seat and wrapped her arms around his neck in a tight hug. Good night. See you tomorrow. Taejuan froze, hadn't been hugged in. He couldn't remember, didn't know what to do with his hands, his body, his entire existence in the face of this casual affection. Slowly, carefully, he placed one hand on her small back. Good night, Iris. She pulled back, still sleepy, and smiled. You give good hugs, stiff but good. Then she was gone, Renee guiding her toward the back to gather their things. Taejuan sat in the empty booth, hand still raised where it had rested on the child's back. His heart pounded like he'd just survived a firefight. Jin-Soo appeared at the door, giving the 5-minute signal. Time to return to reality. To meetings and violence and the cold calculations of power. But as Taejuan stood, he caught his reflection in the darkened window. For a moment he didn't recognize himself. The hard lines around his mouth had softened. His eyes held something besides the usual emptiness. He looked almost human. Outside, rain had stopped. The city stretched before him, neon and shadow, beautiful and brutal. His kingdom, built on blood and fear and ruthless determination. But somewhere in that kingdom, a small apartment held a widow and her daughter who'd invited a monster to Thanksgiving dinner. And the monster had said yes. Thanksgiving arrived cold and clear. Taejuan stood outside Unit 3B holding a bag of expensive groceries. Organic turkey, fresh vegetables, imported Korean ingredients, feeling more nervous than he'd felt facing down rival gang leaders. This was different territory. No guns, no threats. Just a holiday dinner with people who inexplicably wanted him there. Iris opened the door before he could knock, face glowing with excitement. You came, Mama, he came, he brought food. The apartment was tiny, studio-sized, barely big enough for 2 people, worn furniture but clean, toys organized in a plastic bin, photos of Caleb everywhere, on the walls, the refrigerator, the small shelf beside the futon that served as Iris's bed. A shrine to a man who'd loved his family so completely that his presence lingered everywhere. Renee emerged from the kitchen area, wiping her hands on an apron. You didn't have to bring anything. You said nothing fancy. I brought ingredients. He set the bag on the small table. Thought you might want help cooking. Her eyebrows rose. You cook? My mother taught me before. He began unpacking. Korean side dishes, if that's okay, to go with the turkey. That's more than okay. She moved beside him, examining the ingredients. I've never made Korean food. You'll have to teach me. For the next 3 hours, Rainier Grounds' corner booth was forgotten. Taiwan found himself in a cramped kitchen, teaching Renee how to make kimchi, jeon, and japchae, while Iris colored at the table, occasionally running over to taste test. The apartment smelled like garlic and sesame oil and roasting turkey. No, like this. He guided Renee's hands, showing her how to flip the kimchi pancake. Quick motion, confident. Confident, right. She laughed when it broke apart. This is harder than it looks. Everything is. First time I tried making japchae, I destroyed my uncle's kitchen. He made me clean it with a toothbrush. Was he mean to you? Taehwan considered the question while stirring glass noodles. He was survival. He taught me the only way he knew how, harshly, but he kept me alive when he could have left me in Seoul to die. I owe him for that at least. Where is he now? Dead. Heart attack 5 years ago. Left me everything. The organization, the responsibility, the loneliness. Iris appeared at his elbow. Can I help? He looked at her eager face, then at Renee, who nodded. Okay, you can mix this. He showed her how to toss the noodles with vegetables. Gently. Everything breaks if you're too rough. Like my music box. Exactly like your music box. They worked together, 3 people in a kitchen built for one, somehow making it work. When everything was ready, they crowded around the small table. Iris insisted Taiwan sit at the head, the place Caleb used to occupy. We always say what we're thankful for, Iris announced. Daddy started it. I'll go first. She closed her eyes. I'm thankful for Mama working so hard, and for my music box working again, and for Mr. Taiwan being our friend, and for this food that smells really, really good. Renee went next, voice thick with emotion. I'm thankful for my beautiful daughter, for still having this apartment, for new friends who show up when you need them most. She looked at Taiwan. For second chances. Then everyone looked at him. Taiwan stared at his plate, throat tight. When was the last time he'd been thankful for anything? When had gratitude existed in his world of constant threats and calculated moves? I'm thankful, he said slowly, for a broken music box and the girl who asked a stranger to fix it. Iris beamed. Renee blinked rapidly. They ate, and the food was good. But what struck Taehwan most was the conversation. Easy, unforced. Iris told stories about school. Renee shared memories of Caleb, not sad ones, but funny ones. The time he'd tried to assemble a bookshelf and ended up with extra parts. His terrible singing voice. His insistence on dad jokes that made everyone groan. He sounds like he was a good man, Taehwan observed. The best. Renee smiled. He wasn't perfect. We struggled financially even before he got sick, but he loved completely. That was his superpower. She touched Iris's hair. He made sure she knew it every single day. After dinner, Iris pulled out a board game, something colorful and simple. They played on the floor because the table was too small. Taiwan found himself laughing, actually laughing, when Iris accused him of cheating, which he absolutely was not doing. Much. You moved your piece extra spaces, she insisted. Prove it. I saw you. Sounds like speculation. Renee watched them bicker with amusement. She's got you figured out. No one has me figured out. I do, Iris declared. You pretend to be all serious and scary, but really you're nice. And you're bad at board games because you're used to being in charge of everything. Devastatingly accurate from a 7-year-old. Taehwan caught Renee's knowing look. Told you, she mouthed. Evening faded to night. Iris eventually fell asleep curled on the futon, exhausted from excitement and turkey. Renee covered her with a blanket, then joined Taiwan at the small window overlooking the street. Thank you for today, she said quietly. You gave her something I couldn't, a sense of family beyond just us two. I'm not family. Maybe not by blood, but family isn't always about blood, is it? She studied his profile. Caleb used to say family is who shows up, who stays. Who cares enough to be present even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient? This wasn't uncomfortable. Liar. But she smiled. You were terrified when you walked through that door. I saw it. I don't get terrified. Everyone gets terrified. You just hide it better than most. She paused. Can I ask you something personal? You can ask. Do you ever want this? A family, a life beyond whatever dangerous things you do? Did he? Tae-Hwan had spent 2 decades building an empire, climbing over bodies to reach the top, convincing himself power was enough. That control meant safety. That being feared meant being untouchable. But today, playing board games on a worn carpet with a widow and her daughter, eating food he'd helped cook in a kitchen smaller than his closet, he'd felt something he'd forgotten existed. Peace. Belonging. The sense that maybe survival wasn't the same as living. I never thought I could have this, he admitted. My life doesn't allow for it. Or maybe you don't allow yourself to have it. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed. Jinsu, emergency, territory dispute escalating. His presence required immediately, reality crashing back in. I have to go. He stood, already shifting back to the cold efficiency that kept him alive. Thank you for dinner. Renee walked him to the door. Will you come back? To the cafe? Yes, tomorrow. He looked past her at sleeping Iris, music box clutched even in sleep. Tomorrow. She touched his arm briefly. Be careful. Whatever you're walking into. I'm always careful. I mean it. You matter now. To Iris. And... She stopped, something vulnerable crossing her face. To me. So come back in one piece. Tae-Hwan stared at her. When was the last time anyone had cared whether he lived or died, beyond what it meant for their own survival? When had he mattered as a person, rather than a position? I'll come back, he promised. The streets swallowed him, cold and familiar. Jinsu waited with the car, tension radiating from every line of his body. Boss, we have a problem. Big one. Explain. Park Min-jun is making a move. He's gathered support from 3 families. They're calling for a leadership challenge tomorrow night. Official trial by combat. Park Min-jun, his uncle's nephew through marriage, ambitious, cruel, had been waiting for years for a chance to take control. A leadership challenge was legitimate within their structure. Old Korean tradition. Winner took everything. Loser usually didn't survive. Let him challenge. Tae-Hwan's voice was ice. I'll handle it. But as they drove toward his penthouse, he thought about Iris's smile, Renee's concern, the promise he'd just made to come back. For the first time in 13 years, he had something to lose. And in his world, having something to lose was the most dangerous thing of all. The challenge came at midnight in a warehouse south of the city. Neutral ground. Witnesses from 5 families. Old rules applied. Hand-to-hand combat until one man yielded or died. No weapons, no interference. Park Min-jun was younger, faster, hungry for power. Tae-Hwan was older, more experienced, carrying the weight of 13 years of absolute control. They circled each other while observers watched in silence. Heard you've gone soft, Youngnim, Min-jun taunted, using the honorific mockingly. Playing house with some American woman and her brat. Pathetic. Tae-Hwan's expression didn't change. Talk is cheap, so is mercy, which is why I won't show you any. The fight was brutal. Min-jun fought like a rabid dog, all aggression and no control. Tae-Hwan fought like a surgeon, precise, calculated, waiting for openings. Blood slicked the concrete floor, ribs cracked, flesh split. But midway through, something shifted. Tae-Hwan caught his reflection in a broken mirror, face covered in blood, eyes empty, moving through violence with mechanical efficiency. This was who he'd been for 26 years. This was all he'd known. Then he thought of Iris asking if he ever cried, of Renee saying he mattered, of a small apartment that smelled like family and hope. Min-jun charged. Tae-Hwan could have killed him, had the opening, the momentum, the skill. Instead, he deflected, using Min-jun's own force to slam him to the ground, knee on his throat. Yield, Tae-Hwan commanded. Never. Pressure increased. I'm giving you a choice. Yield and live. Walk away from this. Or die here because pride matters more than survival. Min-jun's eyes bulged, face purpling. But slowly, hatred gave way to fear, then survival instinct. He tapped the concrete twice. Yield. Tae-Hwan released him standing. Blood dripped from his split knuckles as he addressed the witnesses. Challenge satisfied. Park Min-jun lives because I choose mercy. He met each family representative's eyes. Let anyone who questions my leadership step forward now. Silence. No one moved. Good. We're done here. Jin-Soo appeared at his elbow as Taiwan headed for the exit. Boss, you should have killed him. He'll try again. Maybe, but tonight I chose differently. He accepted a towel, wiping blood from his face. Take me to the cafe. You need a hospital. The cafe. Now. Rainier Grounds was closed when they arrived at 2 a.m., but Taiwan had keys. He let himself in, moving through darkness to the corner booth. His ribs screamed. His left eye was swelling shut. Every breath hurt. But he'd kept his promise. He'd come back. Footsteps on the stairs above. The apartment where Renee and Iris lived was connected to the cafe through a back entrance. Light flooded the space. Renee stood frozen, taking in his battered appearance. Oh my God! Taiwan! She rushed over. What happened? You're bleeding everywhere. Had a disagreement. I won. You look like you lost. She grabbed the first aid kit from behind the counter. Sit still, let me see. Her hands were gentle, cleaning wounds with practiced efficiency. I was a nursing student before I had Iris, before money got too tight. She worked carefully, fingers brushing bruised skin. This is your world, isn't it? Violence and blood and fighting. Yes. Are you okay? Really? Was he? Physically, he'd heal. Emotionally, something had changed in that warehouse. He'd chosen mercy over ruthlessness, life over death, had risked looking weak because a 7-year-old had taught him that strength could mean something different. I will be, he said. Renee paused, hands framing his face. You came back, even like this. Why? I promised. Promises from men in your position mean everything. He caught her hands. When I give my word, I keep it, especially to people who matter. We matter, whispered. Hopeful. You matter. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his carefully. They stayed like that, breathing together, blood and antiseptic and something fragile building between them. Mama, Iris's sleepy voice from the stairs. I heard noises. Is everything... She saw Taiwan's face and gasped. You're hurt. I'm okay, little one. But she was already running over, tears streaming. You're bleeding. Who hurt you? I'll beat them up. Despite everything, Taiwan smiled. I believe you would. Don't joke, this is serious. She grabbed tissues, trying to help her mother clean his wounds. You have to be more careful. What if you died? Then who would drink coffee in the corner booth? Who would teach me Korean? Who would... Her voice broke. Who would be my friend? Something in Taiwan's chest, already cracked, shattered completely. He pulled Iris into his arms, ignoring protesting ribs. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? Promise. Forever? Forever. That word again. Dangerous. Binding. Everything his old life rejected. But looking at this child who'd somehow become his anchor, at the woman who'd shown him kindness deserved better than fear, he found himself meaning it. Forever. Iris hugged him fiercely, then pulled back. Wait here. She ran upstairs, returning with her music box. This helped me when I was sad about Daddy. Maybe it'll help you feel better too. She wound it up. Claire de Lune filled the quiet cafe, delicate and achingly beautiful. Iris climbed into the booth beside him, resting her head against his uninjured arm. Renee sat across from them, eyes shining. Your family now, Iris declared. Mama and I decided, right, Mama? Renee nodded, unable to speak. Family. The word echoed through Taiwan's mind. He'd lost his family at 10. Had spent 26 years convinced he'd never have another. Had built an empire on the foundation of that loss, telling himself power was enough. But power couldn't hug him when he was hurt, couldn't play board games or teach him Korean words with terrible pronunciation, couldn't look at him with eyes that saw past the monster to the man underneath. Okay, he said quietly. Family. So over the next months, everything changed. Taiwan became a fixture in their lives, not just nights at the cafe, but school pickups, homework help, weekend trips to Pike Place Market. He paid off Renee's medical debt anonymously, ensured the apartment had heat and working appliances, hired tutors for Iris, who was bright but behind in reading. He taught Iris more Korean. She taught him how to braid hair badly, but he tried. They cooked together, watched movies, built blanket forts, normal things, family things, the kind of life he'd forgotten existed. Renee bloomed under reduced stress, her exhausted eyes regaining light. She started taking nursing classes again online at night, while Tai Huan watched Iris. A future was building, fragile but real. His organization noticed the change. Tai Huan was still ruthless when necessary, still commanded absolute loyalty. But something had softened in him. He offered second chances, where before there'd been only punishment. Started legitimate businesses to phase out the worst operations. Used power to protect rather than just dominate. "You're different, boss," Jinsu observed one day. "Softer. Stronger," Tai Huan corrected. "There's a difference." Because Iris had been right that first night. Strength wasn't just about who you could hurt. It was about who you chose to protect, what you built instead of destroyed, who you became when someone trusted you with their broken pieces. 6 months after the music box, Tai Huan sat in his corner booth watching Iris practice her Korean alphabet. Renee wiped down tables, humming along with the radio. Ordinary moment, perfect in its simplicity. "Mr. Tai Huan?" Iris looked up. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you think Daddy would like you?" The question caught him off guard. He thought of Caleb, the man in all those photographs, smiling and present, and so clearly beloved. The man who'd made pancakes and told dad jokes and loved his family completely. The man whose absence had created the void Tai Huan now helped fill. "I hope so," he answered honestly. "I think he would." Iris returned to her writing. "Because you make Mama smile again, and you keep me safe, and you fixed my music box. Daddy would say those are the important things." Renee met his gaze across the cafe, and in her eyes he saw something he'd thought he'd never deserve. Acceptance, trust, maybe even the beginning of love. That night, after Iris fell asleep, Renee and Tai Huan stood at the apartment window overlooking Seattle's lights. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For being brave enough to fix a little girl's broken music box. For coming back every night, for keeping your promises." She took his hand. "For showing us that family can be found in the most unexpected places." Tai Huan pulled her close, this woman who'd lost everything and still found strength to trust again. "I thought I knew what power was, what strength meant. Turns out I had no idea. And now? Now I know that real strength is letting a 7-year-old teach you about hope. Real power is having someone trust you to keep them safe. Real wealth is—" He gestured to the small apartment, the sleeping child, the simple life he'd somehow stumbled into. "This," Renee kissed him softly. "Caleb would be happy. That Iris has you. That I have you. That we're not alone anymore." They stood together in the darkness, the city sprawling below them, and for the first time since he was 10 years old, Baek Tai Huan felt like he'd finally come home. 2 years later, Iris Whitfield Beck stood in their new house. Nothing ostentatious, just a comfortable home in a safe neighborhood with a yard, clutching a wrapped present. Her 9th birthday. The music box sat on her shelf, still playing perfectly. "Open it!" She thrust the gift at Tai Huan. Inside was a drawing, her, Renee, and him. Stick figures, but clearly family. At the top, in careful Korean and English, "Our family forever." "I made it at school, for Father's Day. I know you're not officially my dad, but—" She looked up at him with those same trusting eyes that had changed everything. "You kinda are, right?" Tai Huan knelt eye level with her. "I'd be honored to be your father. Officially, if that's what you want." "Really?" She threw her arms around his neck. "Can we do the adoption thing? And can I call you Appa like you taught me?" "Yes to both." Renee appeared in the doorway, wedding ring glinting. They'd married quietly 6 months ago. Somebody's getting everything she wants for her birthday. "Everything except a puppy," Iris corrected. "We're still negotiating that." Tai Huan laughed. "We'll see." That night, after Iris slept, he stood in her room watching her breathe. The music box on her shelf caught his eye. He wound it carefully, letting Claire de Lune play softly. Once, he'd been a man who knew only how to break things. Then a brave little girl had asked him to fix what mattered most. In fixing her music box, she'd fixed him. Family, he'd learned, wasn't just about blood. It was about who showed up, who stayed, who chose to love despite every reason not to. And he chose this. every single day, forever.